So we have some breaking news that Amy Klobuchar has been asked by Joe Biden to undergo vetting to be his vice presidential running mate. And according to CBS News and other sources, she's not the only one on this list, but she is right now the banner headline. Everyone's talking about how Amy Klobuchar may well be becoming the frontrunner to be Biden's vice presidential running mate. And right now, I have to say that I am not at all surprised, but very disappointed to hear this news. Look, Amy Klobuchar, by virtue of the fact that she's not in her 60s or 70s, by virtue of the fact that she's also a moderate Democrat, and by virtue of the fact that she represents a swing part of the country, it makes sense, at least on paper, why she would be chosen by Biden to be his running mate. Biden has often said that he wants somebody that's simpatico with him, that in the broad terms agrees with him on the most important issues. And therefore, picking somebody who is a big supporter of Bernie Sanders style policies might be the best decision, or might be what I want, but Biden seems reluctant to pick somebody who he will clash with on core issues. And picking an Amy Klobuchar type who, like Biden, has often attacked the left for saying that their policies are too pie in the sky might be a great choice. There's also the sense, again, going back to this regionality, that the reason Clinton lost in 2016 was because she couldn't deliver the vote in Michigan and Wisconsin. And while Amy Klobuchar is only from Minnesota, she is broadly Midwestern and has often made a point of speaking about not just Minnesota, but the states in that vicinity. And whether or not that works remains to be seen, of course, but she might have the ability, again, on paper, to reach voters in Wisconsin and Michigan, which were narrow Trump victories in 2016 and will be crucial if Biden wants to actually win the presidency this time around. But I think there's so many pitfalls here, guys. There's so many pitfalls to picking Amy Klobuchar. First, this is a slap in the face to progressives, because it was bad enough that Biden's the nominee, but if Biden goes out and picks another right of center, moderate Democrat over many progressive options, that's going to be seen as a sign that Biden is taking progressives for granted. Bernie Sanders people, of course, but even moderate progressives like the Warren camp will feel like they've been taken for granted. And maybe Biden feels that those people are trapped and are forced to vote for him, but they might stay home. And even if they do vote for Biden, they won't be excited and mobilized to actually volunteer, donate, do those extra few things that you do when you really believe in a candidate more than just marking your ballot in November. I also think this could be terrible from an optics perspective when it comes to staff relations. This might seem pretty niche, but both Biden and Klobuchar have a history of bad actions towards their staff. We know that the current Tara Reade story isn't going anywhere. Millions of Americans, a majority of Americans, believe Tara Reade over Joe Biden. Now, for the most part, they've said it's not affecting their vote, but that could change. And Amy Klobuchar has a long established history of being rude to her own staff, throwing staplers at them, mocking them, ridiculing them in a way that is totally unprofessional for any employer, let alone a senator and a potential vice president. And while I know the Republicans don't actually care about workers, what will the narrative be when you have somebody who's been accused of doing awful things to Tara Reade and a vice presidential pick like Amy Klobuchar who's been accused of doing awful things to her staff? I do think that could hurt in a close election. And I think another major factor is that not only is Amy Klobuchar not a racialized person, but that her record on racial justice is checkered at best. A lot of people right now are pushing for an African American woman or a minority woman to be picked as Biden's VP. Someone like Kamala Harris or someone like Stacey Abrams, maybe Val Dennings. There's more than a couple choices, but they want one of those women to fill this role. And they will be very disappointed if it's yet another white woman. But the question will be, what does that white woman's record represent on racial justice? If it's somebody who's seen as an ally to the African American community, then maybe that could be fixed easily. Maybe that could be paved over with a couple of weeks of discourse. But Amy Klobuchar blew up during this primary because when she was a prosecutor, she basically had a young African American man thrown into jail for life when he wasn't guilty of the crime. And it basically tore this entire man's life, his family's life apart. And Klobuchar never really owned up to her failure to ensure justice for a young black man. And that will be on her. And you can better believe that when it's combined with the fact that, black women were ignored for this role, that Klobuchar's pick is going to be seen as a confirmation that African American women are the most loyal part of the Democratic base, and they've been ignored, they've been stepped over yet again by a white person who's seen as more quote-unquote relatable to the average American voter. These are all major weaknesses from Amy Klobuchar. I understand the on-paper reasons to pick her. She's a moderate. She's popular in her own state. She is, young but not too young. She is a woman, but she's not any other kind of minority, so she's safe. There's the argument that, she represents the Midwest. But I feel that Biden's VP has to excite someone in the party. Whether it's progressives, whether it's African Americans, I don't know, which group, but I don't think Klobuchar is going to excite a single person that's relevant to actually improving Biden's chances of victory.